get anything done. But I was able to, while out driving around, listen to some of my favorite old podcasts. And this is gonna get me canceled because I actually listened to one of my favorite interviews of all time, and you guys are gonna, I swear you guys are gonna cancel me for this, is Dan Aykroyd on the Joe Rogan Experience. And I'm sorry, I don't like Joe Rogan Experience at all. I think he's a dangerous idiot. But when Dan Aykroyd came on the Joe Rogan Experience, well, yeah, you know what? Let's dive into CrypticCorner a little bit early so we can talk about that. Here we are. Okay, so I got to listen to this interview with Dan Aykroyd, Joe Rogan, talking about crystal skulls. Okay, so crystal skulls are a fun topic to dive into, and just listening to someone talk about it all passionately like that made me want to explore the history. Now, I know crystal skulls, I think, well, actually, I think they're pretty well all debunked now, but there's still one that's pushed as real. Still one that they're promoting as the authentic Mesoamerican pre-Columbian contact crystal skull. And we will get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to just dabble into what a crystal skull is and how they impact the, what do you call it, the woo community, I guess. So a crystal skull, they're human shaped. They're supposed to be human shaped skulls. Some of them are artistically structured and sculpted, and some of them are to the best attempts as you can with the material at hand, realistically sculpted. Obviously, a lot smoother than human bone would actually be, because they're quartz. Most of them are quartz. Like I would say 90% of them, but there's hundreds of them. Okay, hundreds of them out there in the world that are all claimed to be authentic Mesoamerican crystal skulls from this ancient Aztec or Mayan. I don't think they ever claimed to be Olmec or Inca, but the Inca are another group that have artifacts that people try to tout as having woo-woo power, but not in this case. The crystal skulls are, for the most part, associated with the Aztec or the Mayan empires, both of which were their culture and everything was pretty well wiped out by the start of the definitely by the start of the 19th century when these artifacts started to appear on the scene. So they're, generally speaking, some legends are different. Some legends have that they were seeded around the world. And I'm using weasel words on purpose because that's the way that this is always presented. As some legends say, we'll talk about that. Don't worry. That they were seeded around the world, but for the most part, crystal skulls are alleged to be pre-Columbian. Let's see here. There are a few that are absolutely famous, that are in big museums, and we'll talk about. We're going to talk about 4 individual skulls. The fourth one we're really going to dive into because it's got a lot of history to it. But so when you're talking about crystal skulls, it's hard to say where to start because it's kind of during the early 1800s into the early 1900s. So this long period of time, there was a influx of the great white explorers into the South American and, to a lesser extent, Central American regions, tropical regions where these cultures once thrived, to basically to pillage and grave rob. I mean, let's be frank about it. In the name of archaeology, and they'd bring them back to their big fancy museums in London and New York and Paris, and be touted as heroes who have discovered a artifact from a lost civilization, not taking into account at all that the lost civilization was only wiped out a couple hundred years before that by the white people, and the jungle the jungle takes things back pretty quick. when a city is built in the middle of a rainforest, or just in a area that's that's beneficial for rainforest, that the rainforest would thrive in, it will take that city back quickly. And just maybe a little over a decade, a city in the jungle can be completely hidden by foliage. But they decided that these Mayan and Aztec artifacts were ancient from lost civilizations that had supernatural powers in a mystical priesthood that used, among other things, crystal skulls to perform their magic. So some legends have it. Again, some legends have it. And this is coming directly from Dean Aykroyd in that interview that there were 13 of them that were, when joined together, would give the user power over death and things like that. It was the plot to a 90s superhero movie called The Phantom that had the crystal skulls as part of the plot device, and used them to drive the story. They were basically a MacGuffin in that movie, but nonetheless they were present. And then obviously Indiana Jones was another famous piece of media that used crystal skulls as a plot device to drive the story along. But it's funny, Indiana Jones, because all these guys thought they were Indiana Jones, and one of the key characters we're going to get in today was actually a writer for that. But let's first examine the skulls. Let's look at the skulls. So, hold on here. So we will... Okay, you can't really talk about crystal skulls too much without getting into this gentleman right here. This is Eugene Bowden. Okay, he is an archaeologist for Mexico. For I don't think it was the Republic of Mexico back then, though, was it? Let me see. No, Emperor. It was the Empire of Mexico back then. Maximilian the First was the monarch that he worked for, but he wasn't. He was a archaeologist. He was the antiquarian, I guess, and he was commissioned by Napoleon III. So he's not like necessarily a woo-woo figure. But he is tangled up in this web of crystal skull history. So back to this is what they call the British Museum skull. First appeared in 1881. It was no archaeological dig or anything's associated with this skull. It's passed from hand to hand all around Europe, kind of muddying up its history and its provenances. So it's hard to say where it originated at, but for the most part, we know, based on research done throughout the 20th and into the 21st century on the sculpting of this skull, that it's probably from somewhere in the 19th century, and it was likely made in this German village. So we know pretty well where it came from and how it was made. Okay, so and then follow up to The British Museum skull is what they call the Paris skull. The Paris skull, also associated with Eugene Bowden. Pretty small. It actually was a skull that was included with two other ones, but this one's the largest of those, and it's only 10 centimeters, and there's 4 inches or so. But this one is also pretty well known to have been created in modern times, based on the way that we through SEM analysis. That's like a scanning with the electron microscope. It's really looking in on it. They know how it was tooled, and that method. The earliest use of that method was like in the 1740s. So there's no way that the ancient civilizations of Mesoamerica would have the ability to do such. So we know that this is also a modern, I don't say it's a forgery, but I mean, touting it as a authentic artifact it would be forging it. But I mean, there is some craftsmanship there for sure. And then we have the jumbo Smithsonian skull, which is huge and also completely man-made. This skull, it weighs 31 pounds and is 38 centimeters high, or what is that, 15 centimeters, so like over a foot tall, and it was carved using carborundum, which is a modern abrasive that it's like silicon based, that was not been in use for very long, did not really get into prominent use until after the 1950s. So yeah, definitely not a authentic crystal skull. Okay, so there are a lot of other ones that have different names and origin stories and pedigrees, but they aren't nearly as well known as these three that are in major museums around the world. All right. Before I move on too much, I'm going to pop out here and just have a look at what's going on in the side chat here. Anti-bullying. Okay. Crystal skulls are hand-carved crystal skulls because there's no such thing as magic. Absolutely no such thing as magic. But you're going to have that challenged today, Scapegoat. You're going to have that assertion challenged. Are these skulls magical? We'll find out. Good morning, Scott Duke. And given what we know about the culture of Central America and South America at the given time, could they have been something that was used in rituals or other practices? I don't think so, and we're going to talk about why shortly, but yeah, it was during a turbulent time in Mexico that this stuff was going on. Very turbulent time. Has it ever not been a turbulent time? I guess the last 50 years or so have been mellow by comparison to some of the early history of Mexico. But yeah, so there's an assortment of crystal skulls out there that have different names and are different sizes. Most of them are fairly small. Again, the Smithsonian skull is the biggest crystal skull that I'm aware of, and it's massive. There's some pictures out there of people holding it, and I guess I should have shared those. But we're really here to talk about is these people. Mostly the bearded gentleman and the young lady next to him. These are, this is, what's this, AF, or FA, sorry, FA Mitchell Hedges. Okay, Mitchell Hedges skull. These folks were amateur archaeologists, but more than anything, our gentleman with the big pipe here was a writer. He was a adventure writer, so very good at spinning a yarn. And one of the things that he is alleged to have procured in his collection of oddities from the Orient, or from the far corners of uncontacted people, and there was Orientalism was terrible in this period, and in South America was not free of it. Again, it was like they had tapped out Africa and India and needed someplace new to exploit. And North America, it was pretty well conquered at the time, but maybe a little bit of Mexico was still open to be claimed. But South America was run by brown people, and they can't manage their artifacts. They need white people to come in and dig through their ruins and pull them out and take them back to Europe and back to North America, because that's where they need to be. They need to be safe where white people can take care of them. It's important for white people to be able to do that. That was the idea back then, that we were preserving them, saving the savages from themselves. This notion that the only way that they could be safe was in our, again, European culture, Western society, whatever you want to call it, was in our locked down archives. So exploring these ruins was just a favorite pastime of rich British and American, Parisian, any European culture really. These rich aristocratic people with their old money would go on these safaris when they'd hire a team of locals to take them out to ruins, and they'd poke around with their shovels and steal stuff. Depending on how much they paid the people carrying the stuff, they'd steal huge things. They could steal statues and masonry and just wreaked havoc. I know that Egypt was definitely where they were the worst about doing stuff like this, but some of the Mayan temples were just as bad. They were just as bad with their invasiveness. But I digress. This isn't even really about him, because other than writing about it being in his collection later in life, he didn't make too big of a deal about it. There was some correspondence that he had with friends and family, but up until when did he start touring with that? Let me see here. I don't know that he ever really did. When it really got out of hand was when this gentleman passed away, and the skull went into the hands of his daughter. You'll remember her from the earlier slide, the young lady here sitting in the middle, because suddenly the origins of the story, since her dad had passed away, most of the people, if not all of the people at this time, had passed away, and this crystal skull was passed down to the hands of Anna Mitchell Hedges. And this is where we get wild. Okay, so Anna tells a tale of this crystal skull, how it was under an altar, and she saw the light glitter off of it as the sun shined through the cracks. She ran back and told the diggers that there was a person with a flashlight down there somewhere underneath the ruins. But further investigation, they found that the light was reflecting off of something, but it was unreachable because it was down in a tiny crevice, and only brave Anna was able to squeeze down. So she climbed down in there and climbed back out with the famed Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. Mitchell Hedges' crystal skull is nigh identical to the British Museum crystal skull we saw at the beginning. It does have more detail. Its crystal, I believe, is more iridescent, and it has a removable jaw, which is a odd feature, but we're going to look at it in more detail here in a minute, so don't you worry. So she went on tour with this thing. She had books written about it. She paid authors to write about it and tell this tale of her finding this crystal skull in her youth. Like in 1924 is when she claimed this happened, when they were on that dig. Now, F.A. Mitchell Hedges did go on a dig in 1924, but there's no record of Anna being with him, and no record of the skull being found. As a matter of fact, there's not much record of the skull before 1943. We'll explore that in a minute. But the next character on our list is Anna's husband. Now, this gentleman is actually still the owner of the crystal skull. And he's who we're going to be focusing on for the rest of this video. His name's Bill Homan. And yes, he's quite a bit younger than Anna, but he is her widower, and he now has possession of the skull, and he still tours it around, still does appearances with it. He's actually been more forthcoming than Anna was, because Anna, when early on she started letting people examine the skull, she lets art dealer, his name was Dorland, she let him do an assessment of the skull, and he did find some mechanical grinding stuff on the teeth, and he made some assessments on the way that it was polished and everything, and he actually did debunk some of the legends about it, like that its temperature was consistent no matter what the ambient temperature was and things like that. He debunked all that. After he looked at it, they had Hewlett-Packard examine it in their lab. There's a lot of claims being made about the way. Thank you, Bread of Life. I appreciate that. It took some thinking to come up with the new name, but we are now HiveScience, and I'm glad you were able to find us. I'm glad everybody was able to find us. Anyway, yeah, so they had Hewlett-Packard look at it, and they make claims that, they said that there was no way it was made. They couldn't figure out how it was made. None of that claim is true. They absolutely never made any claims about its age or its method of production. What the Hewlett-Packard folks were mainly looking into when they examined this skull was just the structure of it and what it was made from, not how it was made or how old it was. Yeah, they were trying to figure out what it was made from and debunk some of the ideas about it being like basically against the grain of the crystal and things like that. Anyhow, so that brings us up to date, I believe. Yes, that brings us up to date. So now it's time to, let me see here. We are going to watch some recent video here of somebody. Hold on here, just a moment. This is from, where's the date? Where is the date? This is September 2021, so not too long ago. And get off the screen, crystal skull. It is cursed. It's cursed. I can't get it go away. Oh, there, it's gone. It's gone. That was really close, guys. Okay, so I'm not gonna watch your little artistic intro. So we have, let me speed it up a little bit. We're never going to get through the show today. So this is Bill Homan right here. And he's got the crystal skull in his bag, I believe. The girl he's talking to is this Emily Raw character. We will look into her just a little bit in a moment. But there's the skull. There's the top half of the skull. And he sit there on the jaw. Oh, they got some elongated skulls as well over there in their collection. All right.
Yesterday we had a little session with the crystal skull.
Yeah.
And it was the Hedges skull, which is another project we're working on, but we got to interact with that. What seems to be an archetype, you know, it's telling a story where we're developing or going deeper into certain archetypes with the skull as a representation or a tool that we can use to go into those deeper into those archetypes. What did the skull tell you?
Now, buckle in. Buckle in. We are about to go full on woo 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 with this girl. She's going to use a lot of buzzwords, so try to keep up.
Oh, so the symbolism of the skull is very deep. It often can be a frightening symbol to people of a symbol of death because we feel after something has died. But it's also a symbol of our inherent crystalline nature, the very core essence of who we are.
Remember your inherent crystalline nature. We have an inherent crystalline nature.
Beyond the surface. The skulls also represent ancestors. You know, they're that which has been, that is still preserved for us to learn from. So for my personal relationship with the skull, it has to do with the herald of an ending and a new beginning. It also has to do with a reflection of myself and who I am as a crystalline being, and seeing the skull that lives in me.
To be clear, I'm not sure what she means by... Turn up the volume on the video, yeah. I'm not sure what she means by crystalline being. But yeah, let's see.
My impermanence, but also my eternal nature, my own crystalline nature that's preserved over a long time. So for me, that's what it represents. For me, as well as crystal skulls, particularly as a symbol of a gift, a record that's been left by our ancient ancestors to support us through the transition that we're experiencing on Earth today.
Is that better?
It represents to me a gift from those ancient or other dimensional ancestors. It's like confirmation or an affirmation that we're supported. Yeah, but it's different for everyone.
Let me know if that's better for you out there in the side chat. So she was all about the crystalline nature of humanity, but all right. What are we going to do now?
There's a connection with the grandmother elders in that the skulls are already counseling, 13 are already.
I'm going to slow it down.
Just is coming to a place where we're evolving to a level where we can organize within each other and our consciousness to be able to meet with them. They're
waiting for us.
They're doing their work. They're waiting for us to catch up and remember our abilities and get in alignment with our purpose. They're helping us to evolve to come to the level where,
you know, if you don't know what they're talking about here, you haven't been keeping up on your Gaia, and that's your own fault. If you don't, because you all ever watch like Gaia videos? Maybe I should do a riff on one of those at some point. Would you all like to see Bree do an assessment of a Gaia video? Let me know.
where we can hear them and each other and recognize each other and them to come to do this work. And then again, they're showing me the grandmothers again, or there's the 13 indigenous grandmothers, but there's a connection with the grandmothers and the
13 indigenous grandmothers. Is somebody writing this down? These are not concepts that I think are at least these aren't concepts that were associated with the Maya or the Aztec cultures in any way, shape, or form that I'm aware of. As a matter of fact, the skull symbolism was a European import and was not really a big symbol used in Mesoamerican art.
skulls.
And the skulls too, yeah.
Yes, and they want to talk about
They want-
sacred feminine. They're showing me again crone grandmother to move beyond goddesses like love and sexuality and this. It's more the deep wisdom of the earth,
Yep.
the ways of nature and cycles and time again. And so that was a really key part. And then when you were speaking of your connection, they were looking at me and saying how much you are both such a gentle-hearted person and clear-intentioned person and a warrior, and that the skulls require both that work.
Hey, Bill has the same Apple Watch as me. Yay, Apple Watch buddies.
Warrior spirit of guardianship and protection and understanding of that, but with pure-heartedness.
I wonder if if she's going to connect that 13 grandmothers with the 13 crystal skulls. Like Jesus and his 12 apostles. It all makes sense now. Yes, so basically 411 figured it out.
Like, oh, that's my buddy here.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
So this is essentially
Everybody in
watching
one
her
way.
give like a
But then when they were in the
reading.
darkness and the
We're going to take just a moment to look at who this young lady is, because she's certainly got a lot to say, doesn't she? This Emily Ross. So let's just take a moment to look into her, because she has her own website, and we're going to explore that a bit, just for a moment. There we are. Okay. About me. I was initiated by the Temple of Isis and Fellowship of Isis in 2005 and have been on a path of both the seeker and facilitator since then. I studied transpersonal psychology at the College of the Redwoods in Northern California, as well as magic, witchcraft, religion, world mythology, and ecological sciences. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and have always had a precocious and wild spirit that has been called to the mysteries and to the muse. I'm an artist, and I'm learning through this quest called life. I've been a nomadic merchant and spent years curating beautiful artwork, jewelry, and herbal medicines. I've dedicated my life to the study of dreams, both waking and in sleep, and am committed to creating safe containers for dream work to flow through. I believe that there are treasures that one can find along the way, and I know without a doubt that these gifts found in the other worlds are meant to be shared with others here. I've interpreted thousands of dreams, led hundreds of rituals, given thousands of readings, and have experienced countless visions that have supported and validated others in my community. I hold precious my soulmate clients and friends. I don't know if that's supposed to be soulmate clients and friends. There may be a comma that's missing. This work as an oracle and medicine person feels purposeful. I'm also a musician, a hip hopa, and I love fusion belly dance and drinking tea. While I feel fairly self-aware, it is one's greatest challenge to explain who we really are to another. This itself is the work that I am called to do the most, to explore together who we are and why we are here. Okay, so that's who she is, and that's who she wants us to understand that she is. So I'm not going to push the envelope on that. I'm just going to let that be what she tells us about herself. She's a New Ager, believes in a lot of metaphysical interactions and spirits and stuff like that. So she is using a lot of that terminology, and we basically are forced to try to decipher it here. Which, if you're wondering about this type of language, this New Age language, Biddy Buddha and Pat Lowinger have been doing interviews with folks from this community. to kind of help us get a better understanding of what they believe and why, and how their belief system is structured for people who aren't into that culture or who haven't been exposed to it too much. All right.
There was no information, or in a space of darkness and emptiness is where they find exception, not with their experiences of knowledge, because it's all in one thing. So it's actually the exceptionalism of its darkness and silence and space that it remembers standing out in its period of time in silence. That it wants to be with people to remind us of that infinite knowledge. It has all that.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Well, really, I feel that the coming together of the male, female, the raising of the female consciousness and taking their rightful.
Bob's all, or was it Bob? I can't remember. Mr. Homan, Bill. He's all talking about that coming together, the male and female, with young Miss Emily Raw here.
Place where it should be, and also the fact of all human beings coming together, just like the Hopi prophecy and the prophecy of the white buffalo, of all races coming together. And this is the time for that.
I hope you guys are into prophecies, because we're just getting started on prophecies here, not just on the crystal skulls. We got more prophecies to come.
This is
an exciting time.
It is. This is the morning star, because we're in the time where it's all busting up, and because of that, it's going to build whatever way.
That's an important message for a lot of religious groups and spiritualities, is this idea that we are in this end time, this period where things are breaking up. The veil is about to be lifted, was the message that I got back when I was hanging out with the Wiccans and going to their rituals and stuff. My ex-wife was a Wiccan. I tried. I mean, I was a pretend Wiccan, I guess I would say. I don't think I ever really bought into it too much, but you gotta do what you gotta do to fit in, and I got to experience it. But there was a lot of inferences like that.
Way we come up with, but in the busting up is the beauty of it.
Yeah, and the first image they had shown me was looking upwards towards the heavens and the spaciousness and peace, and be at peace. Keep your view fixed on the divine, and just be at peace. Let that the karma of the world is such.
But what if you don't believe in the divine? Or unfortunately, I don't believe in karma either. I like to evoke karma, like when something happens to somebody that was a bad person or a good person that is that could be interpreted as a repercussion of their activities. Then I like to pretend that's karma. It's just, I'm sure it's just happenstance that these things happen. But there's a lot of woo belief here.
We don't even have
to focus on.
Right. If we focus on the karma of the world, that keeps us in the world.
Yes.
It's time to go above and go into ourself.
Yes, and there's this very strong blue color ray that comes in with that message. It's like a very bright blue, like the sky, and it's very healing. It's just, it's okay, just the traumas and the karmas, they're unfolding now, and it's not about us completely.
The traumas and the unfolding now, the traumas and the karmas.
It is, but it's not about us to let that
go.
Yeah.
Is that pretty exciting?
It's so exciting. Yeah.
So he's very happy to meet you.
Thank you. Great to meet you too.
Yeah. All right. So.
Yeah.
That was Emily Raw meeting the Mitchell Hedges skull. So undoubtedly, the Mitchell Hedges skull is still being promoted as a legitimate artifact, a legitimate pre-Columbian artifact, as a matter of fact. And the fact that people are still touting it as that is a problem, because when it comes to crystal skulls, specifically the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. The origins of it are actually documented. F.A. Mitchell Hedges bought the crystal skull at an auction in 1943, all documented. Anna did not dig this thing out of a Mesoamerican tomb. It was purchased, and it has its links back to our old friend Mr. Bowden. And yeah, it's well documented how F.A. Mitchell Hedges came into possession of it, and he never really claimed too much more about it other than that, he did claim things about it being magical and whatnot, but he did not make any claims about finding it or anything. He never deceived anybody, but the person who owned it before has documents of, their name was Sidney Burney. This is not a unknown provenance for this particular artifact. I guess by now it would be considered an artifact, but more of like a Victorian artifact than a Mesoamerican one. So that was our dive into crystal skulls. I hope it was entertaining, at least a little bit. We went a little bit out there. We got a little bit deep into the woods with the New Age scene, but that's kind of what you ask for when you're dealing with crystal skulls. So the next item on our menu, before I do that, thank you for joining me if you're here on Friday for Cryptic Corner. We appreciate your views, and please remember to be kind and take care.